What's going on, everybody? This episode is jam-packed with good information, quality insights from Tommie Moore. He's a head strength and conditioning coach for Eastern New Mexico University. He takes us through pretty much everything that he's gone through as far as his journey, some of the systems and the implementations that he's been able to kind of go through right now with some of his athletes when it comes to some of Charlie Francis' work, movement analysis, and gives us some really deep thoughts on the college strength and conditioning industry itself, college sports and college athletics, and the student athlete experience. So super pumped to have him on. I really think you guys are going to enjoy this one. So let's get it going. All right. Welcome to this week's episode of the Samson Strength Coach Collective podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Grasso. Today, we are happy to be joined by Tommie Moore. They call him Coach T. He is the head strength and conditioning coach for Eastern New Mexico University. Just to give you a little bit of background on him from an educational perspective, he has his bachelor's in sport communication from South Carolina State University. He has his master's in sport and human performance from Delta State University. Some of the places he's occupied, he's been Texas, Southeastern Louisiana University, Delta State University, Kentucky, Florida, Middle Georgia State University, South Carolina State University, and he was a hospital corpsman for the U.S. Navy. We thank him for his service. Certifications that he has: he is a performance enhancement specialist through the National Academy of Sports Medicine. He is a certified strength coach for the National Council on Strength and Fitness, and he's a specialist in strength and conditioning through the International Sports Sciences Association. So, Tommie, welcome. Pumped to have you, man. Obviously, this was pretty short notice, and I appreciate you being flexible. I know you've got some stuff going on, especially towards the end of May when everything, or end of April when everything's trying to wrap up, and obviously, like you said, get towards summer break. But welcome, man. What's going on? How are you?
Man, listen, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. And like I said, end of April, everybody getting done with lifts for the semester and going into finals and everything. So then starting to prep for summer workout. So like I said, definitely really appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt, man. This is a blast. I'm really pumped to get you on here. So let's get into it then, man. What's going on? Talk to us. Obviously, I mentioned some of the places that you've been, and usually what I like to do at the beginning of the podcast is just give you an opportunity to tell us your story. And like I said, before we got on here, if there's anything that you want to talk about specifically or any of your particular stops, go right ahead. But yeah, man, talk to us about your journey. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, so my journey's been a little, like I said, a little fluctuating, a little crazy. So as soon as I got done with high school, so I joined the United States Navy as a reservist. Started out a logistics specialist and was attached to some different units in Fort Jackson, South Carolina. Like I said, where I'm from, South Carolina in general, then Norfolk, Virginia, and then even attached to a unit out of California. So deployed to Afghanistan. I've been to Germany, some places like that. So kind of my school experience was a little bit of hectic because I was there, then I wasn't there for a little bit. But spent 8 years in the Navy, walked on a walk-on football player at South Carolina State University, and had the chance to be under some great strength coaches while I was there. And that kind of afforded me the opportunity, like, hey, the journey through the weight room to the field, that played a big part for me. So just kind of talking about some guys that I had the chance to work with, Torrey Becton, Keith Swift, Keith Swift.
I was gonna say, damn, this dude work with Keith Swift.
Hey, listen, he gonna get me. He gonna get me, man, Keith Swift, and then also John Williams, man, Big John Williams at East Carolina. Kind of shout out to those guys who kind of really had an impact to me, and then even Coach Tremaine Williams, Coach True at Kansas State. Like I said, all of those guys are great mentors for me. At each individual kind of part in my journey, as playing, like I say, being with the football team, and then also just with the history, as people know, South Carolina State University Celebration Bowl champions this year. So got to give a shout out to my alma mater, and it was great being able to be a part of that process. As like I say, we in the state of South Carolina got the most Hall of Famers in the NFL out of any college in the state of South Carolina. So
let's go.
Yeah, so it's definitely great to be a part of something like that. And then even the guys that are in the NFL right now that are, like I say, on various teams, and like I say, we're just trying to put us on the map just from a standpoint of everybody looking at HBCU football, even though it's still the FCS. There's some great talent that comes out of the FCS and even HBCUs. But I started out as a football coach though.
Really?
So, yeah. So I did coach for 2 years at Edisto High School down there in Orangeburg in various positions. I didn't even help with the weight room then. So our head coach kind of took care of that. And then once I graduated, went to Middle Georgia State University as the defensive line coach and essentially the head strength coach working with football only there. And that was a great experience. And then I had to kind of make some decisions after that. Okay, which way do I want to go? So being a strength coach was my passion, and it was, okay, how do I want to get into this? So then took an internship at the University of Florida, got the chance to work with Coach Nick Savage, who's kind of, like I said, kind of came in under the Marathi tree. And that was my first foray into being a full-time strength coach. And it taught me how to be a part of just the industry and how to work and how to grind and how to do some things. And then outside of that, like I said, accepted a GA position at Delta State University, was there for 2 years. But in between that, I went to Kentucky for that summer just to see some different styles of training, because I didn't want to just get locked in on just, okay, we were conjugate base or using West Side. I wanted to see some Olympic style lifting. I wanted to see some French contrast. I wanted to see some different things to be able to kind of help myself develop as a coach. And then went to Southeastern Louisiana University as an assistant, then ended up taking a high school job from there. And that, like I said, that didn't work out. And then I said, okay, if I want to get back into it, I got to kind of humble myself a little bit. So then I took an internship in the University of Texas under Coach T. Beck, and worked with football there with Coach Sarkisian's first year. And it was definitely something to experience, because I've been at Power 5 levels before like that. And I know people say don't logo chase and stuff like that, but I got to go work for somebody that I know, somebody that's a mentor. And those guys like really helped me out, and that elevated me to take a position here. And also, like I said, for me here, Coach Zach Ackenberger, give a big shout out to him. He was my internship coordinator at Florida. And then that led me to meeting my former head strength coach, Kevin Rodriguez, and Raleigh Allen, who's the basketball strength coach at Ole Miss, who, like I said, I know you guys know well. He like I said, kind of linked me up and got me this opportunity here.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So talk to us a little bit about the position that you hold now. I mean, that's a hell of a journey right there, and I appreciate you taking us through that. But so what's it been like? How long have you been there, and what are the roles and the responsibilities, and kind of like, give us a little bit of your thoughts on like, hey, like this is what it's like to be the head guy now. Like, I'm running the show.
Yeah. So like I said, it's been crazy ever since I hit the ground running. January 10th was my first day here. So I am the only full-time strength coach on staff right now. So I'm a staff of one pretty much, but then I have some student interns who kind of assist me with different things. Like I said, a couple of them on the football team. One is a former track athlete, and they work with various sports, but it's really just being able to program for all sports, and kind of sometimes it feels like you're kind of stretched thin, but like I said, I make it work. And it's definitely been great to kind of be able to balance a budget and talk about things to help the Division II programs or the Division II level elevate to where other programs are at, even kind of at the bare minimum sometimes, like, hey, create a nutrition department and being able to partner with Team Builder to kind of better program and get some things done from an athlete management standpoint, and then also looking at even health and wellness, trying to get force plates and different technologies in here to help athletes, because I think the student athlete experience, you only get one college experience, no matter how many schools that you're at, but we want to be able to kind of provide the best opportunity for all our athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a key word there is that athlete experience too. Like, I was just talking to my buddy. He's I don't know if you know Andrew Smith. He's a strength coach over at USC, and he just did a presentation, and I was like watching. And at the end of the presentation, he's like, and he killed it. And he was like, hey, just quick side note. All this stuff aside that I just presented on, like the athlete experience and like the power that you have as a coach is so immensely like impactful that like you can't take that for granted. Like, be careful with the words that you put out there, the information you give to your athletes, and the experience you provide for them, because they will never forget it. You know what I mean? Like you said, it's only there it's their only college experience. Whereas like you're going to have multiple athletes, like they have one coach for the most part, right? They're going to have, and no more than a handful, really. So that is awesome. And it's funny because like one of the questions I asked would be like, okay, like what motivates you as a coach and how do you motivate your staff? But you don't have a staff. So it's like, I don't know. Yeah, I guess the question would be just like how do you, like what motivates you as a coach? Obviously you seem super passionate about this, and I think you're super grateful for all of the connections you've kind of made along the way. You've had a great journey, and I think you enjoy the kind of the process that is strength and conditioning. But you do have, like you said, you got some student interns. So like what motivates you as a coach? And then kind of how maybe it's even a better question to pose is, how do you motivate two student interns, right? And like some students who are not full-time assistants, who are not, fully ingrained in the strength and conditioning community, just so, as far as like, experiences and internships and all that stuff. How do you go about approaching that?
I think every day I really just take the time out to like say, just pray and like say, thank the man above. Cause like I say, without him, like none of these things would be possible, and being able to kind of sit back and enjoy the process, because like I say, it's already planned out, but just making sure to enjoy every day. And I'm a big kind of motivational video guy. Like I think I watch YouTube more than I do Netflix or Hulu. So just in different areas, just being able to use that, and just like even giving my athletes like daily quotes, and even like my student workers. So, and I know that, hey, because when they asked me, it was like, hey, coach, can I be your intern? I'm like, yeah, of course. And I said, what do you want to get out of it? So, and it was like, yes, I want to get into physical fitness, but at the end of the day, I want to just learn more about what goes into a day with different athletes and different teams and things like that. So, and I just, like I said, try to give them the best advice and tell them, because I have the model. I try to coach from the top down, and knowing that, yes, people say, okay, we're not here to be bodybuilders and weightlifters and things like that. But at the end of the day, when people leave here, I want them to be better people. Because like I say, in this world, I want to be able to put out great quality citizens, and like I say, better sons, daughters, like I said, husbands, future wives, because I got the opportunity with kind of touching every athlete on campus to be able to genuinely and directly impact them. So try to just give them that daily experience, because like I said, I've been a lot of places, done some things, and like I said, I don't know it all, but at the end of the day, I want them to be able to talk to me just about life and not just about athletics all the time. So doing the best job that I can do that, and then like I said, learning and watching the collective, because like I said, I've definitely, like I said, watching, like I said, Coach Smith, and even had two guys that I have previous knowledge with, Coach Chauncey's system and Coach Quan Tompkins at UConn. Those
my God, dude.
Those are my guys.
I wanted to ask, because when I was looking through your profile, I was like, maybe he knows Quan. And then because like, I was looking at like some of the places that you've been or whatever. And I was like, it seems like to me, whenever I meet someone from South Carolina, like you said, super prideful to be from South Carolina, and you guys talk, like the overall football connection. But I'm like, dude, South Carolina's so big. Like, that's so like random to just ask him if he knows Quan. You know what I mean? But like, yeah, that's crazy. So you do know Quan. That's wild. Yeah. So I talk to Quan and Chauncey every single day. So yeah, it's obviously those are my guys from when I was at UConn. So
okay.
Gotcha, that's awesome. Gotcha. That's wild. That's wild that So do you know Quan just from being in South Carolina? Is that
yeah? So South Carolina, and then like I said, we're fraternity brothers as well. So we're in a group, like a strength group meet. And so I even, like I said, we met way before this, and he was at like I said, Northwestern. He was at Northwestern, and then kind of like I said, me and Coach King, like I said, we talked for a little bit just through like our connections just within the field. And shoot, he had a position, and I said, hey, Quan, like kind of reached out and like asked him like, hey, would you be open to a position up there? He said, shoot, heck yeah. So I mean, like I say, him and Coach King linked up, and I mean, they've been getting it rocking. And I know then adding Chauncey to the mix, and those, like I said, those are two colleagues in this field that I very, very much respect. And like I say, in our own individual journeys, and shoot, I learn from them all the time.
All the time. Those dudes were the best filter that I had when I was at UConn. Like I had these like ideas, and like I couldn't put something forth unless I went through, and like not even just talking strength and conditioning. Like just like in everyday life, like even just yesterday, like I'll just text him like, hey man, I got this thing going on. Like I got to work through it though. Like, let me just put it in a voice message and you guys let me know like where I'm at. So that, Quan and Chauncey are great filters, great dudes overall, and turning into like some really high level strength coaches, like as far as like their ability to like really like provide like quality thoughts and like challenge some of the thoughts that I've had over the years. It's just been like, it's been phenomenal to know those dudes. So that's awesome, man. I'm glad that I should have asked at the beginning. I don't know why I had this feeling. I think it was too, because I was looking at like southeastern Louisiana. I'm like, I saw Georgia in there. I'm like, man, South Carolina. So I'm like, maybe he knows Quan. I was like, it seems like everybody from South Carolina who's in the strength conditioning game like knows each other. You know what I mean? But I'm like, yeah. I don't know. And you got the beard too. Like South Carolina beard is different. It's definitely different. Like South Carolina beard is different than other places. I'm like, yo, like that beard is thick. Because I remember like I would go back and forth between like beard, no beard, and then Quan would just be like, dude, just keep the beard. Like you got to keep the beard. And I'm like,
oh yeah. No doubt. No doubt. And I think that's probably one of the reasons everybody say, hey man, would you ever get back in the Navy? I was like, man, then I have to cut my beard off. And I don't know. I don't think so.
Can't take that choice. Yeah, can't take that chance. Yeah. Well, all right. So this is good to know now. So then how do you kind of describe, moving on from that, like how do you describe like your coaching style, right? So you've got like your ways that you motivate yourself, you've got your ways that you motivate your staff and your athletes, and you create that buy-in and that connection. What is your coaching style? Like obviously you've got, certain methodologies, but those things aside, like how do you approach it and how has it kind of changed over the years from when you started to where you're at now?
Making sure I take the number one thing I try to do. I try to be the strength coach that I wanted in college. And that's so different for each and every kind of strength coach. But then being able to give like clear, concise goals, and like even when I get a team in, even when I got here, I just kind of had some general rules and things that we want to do. But at the end of the day, what drives your success, and then what do you want to accomplish, and then how do we get to that? And so like just taking those steps, and I think the daily quotes that I had, and then being able to say, okay, hey, I know that. And just being totally transparent too, because I know sometimes like, hey, I tell teams like, hey, if I'm here right quick, then I'll make sure my student interns like will have it lined out for the day, and then making sure to kind of give them some autonomy to be able to even coach a little bit. And so I think just making sure that I do that and try to be the same consistent person every day. Because if you do that, then your athlete, like I say, athletes can kind of pick on it, like even if you're having a quote unquote off day, but you have to be able to just like I said, be the same guy. Be the same guy or girl or woman. Like I said, just not trying to discredit anything, but yeah, just be the same strength coach every day, and kind of let them know that hey, you're here for them, and then in the turn, like the more you're there for the athletes, then the athletes are there for you too. And I learned that throughout all my journeys, that even when because it's always hard to kind of go somewhere and transition. But if you really impacted those athletes, then you'll definitely know, because those texts, those phone calls, even after you left, or even they transition or start a family or start a new job, that's what I want to be able to foster that relationship.
Yeah, it's so true too. It's amazing how like when you actually start to open up and engage with them on things that are outside the weight room, how quickly they are to kind of unravel and open up about things that are going on in their lives as well, within a sensible manner. And I think that's awesome too. Like you're right. You do know, like once you've left a place or like an athlete leaves and they kind of let you know like, hey man, I just wanted to let you know, like, this is how I felt about the experience you provided to me and everything like that. That's awesome. So that kind of leads me into my next question, obviously, is like, when it comes to that transition, like you went and, you've taken on, how many sports do you have there at
so here we have 14.
So you got 14 sports. So obviously I'm assuming you didn't play all 14 sports that you work with, right? Like, so there's going to be times where you're working with an athlete, and you haven't played that sport, and like you said, you're a one-man show. So like, how do you go about kind of creating that buy-in for them and kind of exposing them to some of your ideologies and some of your methodologies, which a lot of them may have not been exposed to prior to coming across you, Tommie. So how do you kind of handle that, navigate that, and kind of, allow them to develop the trust they need that like, hey, this guy's looking out for that, for my best interest?
I think it's really asking a lot of questions. So because you have to meet with just each individual sport coach and kind of ask them, hey, what do you want your team to look like? How do you want to play? But then also asking the athletes, hey, if I got a question about something, if it's a sport that I've never played before, because yes, you can look at the anatomy and the physiology of it, but then kind of studying tape and looking at games and being at practices and stuff like that as much as I can. So I can look at, okay, how will we develop this? Or maybe how can we improve on this? Because like the foundational skills are kind of pretty much all the same and kind of like common injury areas and things like that. But then asking them and say, hey, how do you feel today? And sometimes I think we kind of get caught up a little bit in the general wellness questionnaires, because sometimes they can be so general that things lie deeper than just that. How much sleep did you get, or what's your RPE today? Like it's so different. And then again, going back to fostering those relationships, that when an athlete comes in and you have that consistent buy-in, and like I said, sometimes it takes time, because you may have athletes that are maybe a little bit less trusting or a little bit more difficult, but if you do that every day, again, being more consistent, then they'll open up and let you know, hey, coach, I'm feeling like this today. And then actually it's genuine and not just something where you feel like they're trying to get out of something.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's really interesting too, because I think that like the fact that you're asking them questions, I think it's super underrated. I always found that when you ask them questions about like their thoughts on things, whether it be thoughts on their sport, thoughts on the actual training and certain things that we're doing within training, it gives them that autonomy and that ownership that they feel like they're actually in control of their own preparation as well. Obviously, yes. I think that's a good way to increase buy-in, because, you know, it's like, well, if someone feels like they're in control of something and they become more interested, they're probably going to give you, you know, a little bit more, right? Like they'll give you a little bit more and keep you a little more in the tank kind of thing. Right. So kind of building off that, then when you ask these questions, right, and you've got, you know, these athletes that range in like all different types of sports, right? So like, where have you turned to try and, you know, enhance that craft and get a better understanding of all these things, increase your knowledge base, like books, podcasts, or people, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Like what are some of the things that you feel like, and are there any currently that you're kind of diving down deep in the rabbit hole right now that you're really interested in different types of methodologies and systems and things like that you want to kind of let us in on?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right now I lean heavily kind of like on my mentors. Like I said, who are head guys now. Because when I took this job, they said, hey, don't be afraid to pick up the phone. And yeah. I think the guys that, and like I said, not just kind of, it's a multitude of people, but like I said, Coach Becton at Texas, like I said, we talk a good bit. Coach Corey Hammond at down there at Fort Valley, we talk a good bit. And also even like I said, even Chauncey and Quan. Like if I have a question or whatever like that, and I'm like, okay, well, shoot, I do it like this. I'm okay, well, shoot, let me try to find the happy medium. And because you got to think about just as far as a resource standpoint, but then again, I've been at the Division II level where you got to kind of, like I said, make some things work with what you have. And then right now I'm kind of diving down a little bit more in the Charlie Francis a little bit more, because we did a lot. So we did a good bit of that in conjunction when I was at Kentucky. Coach Mark Hill and Coach Corey Edmond there, they did a lot of kind of not like really back and forth, but like conversations with Kentucky track, and then being able to implement that into the football realm and what we do there. And like I said, those guys have definitely a great wealth of knowledge, and I definitely want to look back on them, because everybody kind of has a quote unquote niche that they have as a strength coach. And now doing that, being able to have better movement patterns and being able to run more effectively, I think that's something that is very underrated and sometimes overlooked, just from the overall standpoint of each athlete, because everybody's going to run just a little bit different, and everybody's kind of biomechanically and their body moves a little bit different too. So being able to notice those differences, and now, like I said, when I do that, I think that helps me a little bit more, because I'm a visual kind of kinesthetic learner. Sometimes if I read it, then I'm like, okay, let me read it, go back and look at it, and just show that, hey, now I can foster the best growth and then the best development for myself.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to Charlie's thing, like, you know, given that style of learning, do you feel like what are some of the things that you've dived into? I don't know, whatever. What are some of the things you've gotten into with Charlie that you really enjoy? I know he's got like Speed Trap and the Charlie Francis Sprint Manual and a bunch of other resources and stuff like that. Yeah. What are some of the things that you feel like have been most impactful for you in terms of like being able to implement and have an impact with your athletes, like immediately, as far as some of his systems go? Anything that like jumps out at you?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, overall posture.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people went in there running and just seeing where the foot strike is. And a lot of athletes, depending on, like I said, we have so much backside mechanics when people run, and then knowing like, hey, am I really striking optimally, like I said, under the hip, and am I driving myself forward? So now I'm diving into using more wicket runs now. So being able to work on frequency and stride length now, and then trying to even get up to a max velocity, even when I come out of that last wicket and saying, hey, do I still keep upright posture, or do I lean, or do I go back? And being able to use that, and even a video technology too. So what I'll do too, what we're going to do, like I said, I'm gonna use my iPad so I can be able to video that and then look at the movement analysis and then being able to coach off of that. And each individual athlete will have their kind of individual profile and then what we need to work on. Because again, every athlete is going to be a little bit different usually from a skill and a big skill perspective. Like I said, linemen won't use it as much because we'll do more stuff from a power production. Like I said, comes some sled pushes and some overhead med ball throws, and some general just overhead, like I said, not for distance, but for height. So everybody will be a little bit different. And then like I said, even linemen, like I said, yes, have to run, because the most they'll probably run down the field is maybe 20, 30 yards, maybe on a screen here or there. But just again, going back to the specifics of the sport.
Yeah, that makes sense. And as far as I think it's nice with linemen, obviously, just are they going to be, living in a certain range all game? Probably not. They're probably not going to be getting in that 20 to 30 yard sprint type situation, but just sprint from the standpoint of sprint stimulus, I always think is kind of good to expose people to those things and get them exposed to something where their body needs to organize and coordinate itself at a pretty high velocity is nice, even if it's in really, really small dosages and with certain athletes that their limiting factor is a little bit more like contact and impact, or they live in the trenches or whatever. Even just small exposures to that, I think can have some really, really serious benefits. So going back to some of those things, so you create these profiles for these athletes, and I think that's super cool. Obviously, the movement analysis, I think, is super underrated, but there's a lot of value to that. How do you feel when it comes to obviously track and field is a pretty technical model. So it's pretty rigid, right? They need to, because they have one element that there's one variable really, depending on the event that you compete in. So how have you, when it comes to looking at film, is there a certain thought process you have that allows for some leeway, like you said, with how each athlete is going to move differently and solve problems a little bit differently? Have you kind of gotten to a point where it's all right, well, I understand what Charlie's saying, and I understand the model that I'm trying to put forth and some of the movement patterns, but I also give a little bit of kind of fluctuation towards all right, they are team sport athletes and they are going to have to move and solve problems in some pretty unpredictable and chaotic environments?
Yeah. And that's where I kind of look back at, again, like I said, the individual athlete, but then being able to do more, like I said, more training in a reactive standpoint, just to see how their body moves naturally to, like I said, to a stimulus that's not prepared. Because even when we do things, I'm not trying to trick the athlete. I want to be able to have them function and move at a good range and be mobile throughout it. And so with track, the track coaches here, like I say, I slowly integrated myself because this is kind of unique situation. Everybody was more or less kind of programming for their teams individually. Yeah. And so I slowly took them over because right now I just took over sprints for, like I said, we're in our 5th, 6th week right now. And then, like I said, being able to take cross country and then also middle distance. So I think there's really kind of, and then again, it's more conversation with the actual sport coach and looking at how rigid are the movements, and being able to go to practices. And because right now, and I think kind of hinting on a little bit more stuff, I just started working with more GPS now, because I just got an SPT unit yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So now being able to get some data back off of that, and then looking at, because like I say, the heat map, and then looking at heart rate variability and just some RSI stuff. So I think it's sometimes it's kind of diving into a whole nother world, but then being able to look at, okay, what's that movement efficiency look like?
Yeah, for sure. Well, hopefully they could get you some staff members too, so you got somebody to look over all that, all those, some assistants to look over all that data, because that is going to be a lot of information that you're taking in, and I think it's super valuable. Obviously, like it's like you said though, like the more information that you have, I think the like in my experience, like where I'm at right now, is I think that what it does is it really just drives home the context of like more conversation, right? The more conversations that you can have, I think good things will come from it. Not to say that good things always come from conversation, but I do think
Yeah.
that you know what I mean. The more conversation you have with the sport coach, I think the better off you'll be. So yeah, hopefully they kind of get you in a position where they have enough people to dissect a lot of that data and stuff like that. Do you what is the specific units? What are the specific units that you guys are getting or you have?
So right now we have like I said, our SBT sports vest and like an in-game GPS. So what it is like, and normally, so with Catapult and some other people that I've had
Okay.
and like kind of looked over a lot of the metrics because everybody has their own individual KPIs.
Yeah.
But that this is kind of like I say with the conversation that I had with coach, well, like I said, Jacob Norlock, like I said, my guy that I talked to is kind of reducing the metrics, maybe kind of down 5 to 10. So having a hard running metric, or like I said, saying because you have different zones where you can set the mile per hour and like, hey, how many times is this person going over this mile per hour, like I said, or this zone, or just saying like total or hard impacts. Hard impacts are just the sudden change and like I said, the tenth of a second, you're going from 5 miles per hour to like say if you're going from 5 to 10 or 10 to 15 and just looking at that and then you kind of build a baseline and a profile and trying to measure acute to chronic workload.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I like the idea of like really, simmering down and settling on like a few metrics to really look at. And
Mm-hmm.
10, I think is a lot. Like 5 is probably a little bit more in like the ballpark that I would try to live in, you know what I mean, in my experience. But if you like I said, the more context you have and the more information and the more time you have to look over some of that data, yeah, like maybe you come across some, somewhere in that like 8 to 10 range that you really like, that is interesting. And that's awesome that you guys have that too at the D2 level. Like I don't know, like I don't think that a lot of people do, you know what I mean, at that level. So that is
Yeah,
awesome that you're getting some resources, right?
yeah, no doubt, and that's the thing too. And that was kind of communicated to me, like, hey, kind of catering to, like I said, the Division 2, Division 3 schools that don't have the biggest budgets, and being able to take out the hosting fee every year, because like with some different companies or whatever, not knocking them or anything like that. You have like a subscription price that you pay every year. Like I said, with SBT, it's one time, and then like I said, you can keep adding units, but it's not like you have to pay
Okay.
for pay for hosting every year for like your software or your cloud.
Okay. Yeah, that does help for sure. Yeah, because there is a lot that goes into that when it comes to the budgeting for that for that. So those
Oh,
things really start to rack up and they lock you in for a decent amount of time, and then you get coaching
mm-hmm.
changes and things like that, and who values
Yep.
what and who doesn't. So yeah, that could be a little problematic. Well, that's awesome though. That's really cool, man. I appreciate your insight on that too. I think it's really cool that, and I should probably lead into this for the next question, but I think it's cool. Like I have my own interpretations of like, where the industry needs to go in order to kind of see some advancements in the physical front.
Yep.
And
Mm-hmm.
one of those things is obviously trying to incorporate more sensible, analysis of movement patterns and just like overall movement efficiency. And I think
Mm-hmm.
just looking at like what drives movement when it comes to the context of the sport, I think would
Yep.
really open up avenues for conversation, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But in your opinion, though, and I obviously kind of already like answered my end of that, but what do you
Yeah.
think is kind of what needs to take place? Like, what are some of the things that maybe you struggle with internally, maybe you struggle with personally,
Mm-hmm.
maybe you struggle with professionally that you think in the world of strength and conditioning in the industry itself needs to kind of start to rectify in order to move in the direction that you think would be best for the industry?
Okay. Just for me, and I know this is something that I think it's kind of talked about widely just throughout the industry, but just compensation for coaches. I think that's probably the biggest thing that like I said, that can change and kind of move forward. And then I think the first way that we need to change that is being able to sometimes, like say, schools with different logos that you kind of want to be associated with and different places like that, you can offer a salary, but then somebody will jump at it and take it just because it's the name of that school. But then we have to kind of kind of foster like what is appropriate, what is acceptable compensation for the actual position, and then for all the things that we do, because strength coaches, like, we wear so many hats. We are just coaches. Like I said, we have to psychological stage. You have to have the courses and the training and the education to be qualified to do the job. But then you never know what an athlete may come to you on a daily basis, and you have to deal with so many different situations. So
oh boy. Yeah, they range for sure. There like just when you thought you'd seen it all, like you get something and you're like, wow, I didn't think I would be ever doing this. So yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no doubt, exactly. And it can range from a wide array of things, excuse me. And then also kind of looking at, because I've taken unpaid internships, but now trying to foster, like, in this day and this age and economy, like I said, paid internships. And so, because everybody sometimes can't afford to take out a loan, or they might not come from the best family or background situation where they can afford to kind of pay for housing on their own, if we're not being able to kind of even provide meals or even housing, just being able to take that burden. And I think now it's more or less like, hey, just because somebody before you, or that's always how it's been done, that's how you kind of foster complacency and just saying that, hey, things do need to change, things can be better. And more or less like, hey, if you know better, let's do better.
Yeah. I think the compensation is a huge part of it. I think part of the compensation conversation, conversation, I think that really comes from having a better understanding of what coaching sport really consists of, and I think that like anything, like most things, right, it always starts at the top. So if the people that are hiring the people that are hiring the people that hire us, right, it's like if they had a better understanding of like what coaching sport is, right, so like what your sport coach salary should actually consist of, what coaching sport actually means, and the knowledge base that you need to have in order to do something like that, the bandwidth you need to have in order to make it happen. And also the same would go for any strength coach. I think there's, it's tough. Like there's like these specific criteria that like everybody's based on, or it's not specific at all. Actually, it's extremely vague, like, injuries, and it'll be like, oh, we base our criteria and our evaluation of the strength coach on injuries and performance, right? It's like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Those are those are just, not even scratching the surface as far as what, the depth that you can go into. So yeah, like what are your thoughts on that? Like, if in order to increase compensation, or at least, kind of get the conversation going, right? Like, what do you think in your experience, like some of the best strength coaches, kind of the skills and qualities they possessed, right? And like, kind of like, what do you think that like criteria should look like as far as how the strength coach is evaluated and properly compensated?
Yeah, of course. And so right now, like, then a lot of how we're kind of looked at it, like, say, yes, injury rate and wins and losses and things like that. But sometimes those are, everybody kind of directly impacts that. Like, something goes wrong, everybody's going to come to the strength coach. So now it's so many different factors that play into like injury rates and everything like that, because now you got to see if the athlete's at a fatigue state. You got to think about, okay, are we really progressing and recovering from those stressors? Because if that, like I say, if you think about progressive overload, hey, progressive overload is something that's, it should increase over time. But then maybe it be the athlete either auto-regulatory themselves or using APRE, like different styles, and then being able to adapt to certain situations. Because sometimes we get locked into certain programming styles and certain methodologies that we aren't able to adapt and kind of think on our feet. And then of course, like just from the conversations that's from the people who hire us, and just like even looking at the president of the actual university, because when you think about administration, sometimes athletics and then the academic side is sometimes like kind of butt heads sometimes. But then when you have productive conversation, not just conversation, but it's productive, and everybody comes away from it and say, hey, this is what is needed to kind of move the profession forward, and showing that, hey, athletes and like I said, or athletics in general, like I said, can actually drive student admissions up, and actually getting more people in the seats for games, no matter what sport it may be. And then that in turn will kind of create a time to, have more giving, more funding. And then also looking at the separation between private and state schools, because sometimes that's two totally different pools of money, and who you need to talk to actually get that funding in.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of hoops to jump through in those situations. I think one of those things is like, when it comes down to it, right? Like, and this isn't a knock on college athletics, but I do think there is a certain flaw involved when it comes to like chasing championships and success over chasing excellence. And I think that that's the problem, is like, you seem like somebody, you're chasing excellence. Like, you just want to do a good job every single day. And like you said, be the same person and provide value. But unfortunately, I don't know if, I mean, maybe there's athletic directors out there and presidents who see the value in that. But unfortunately, it needs to be monopolized in a way where it's like, okay, we need to have our student athletes generating revenue for the university. And so this is why we're going to have, 2 or 3 games back to back for field hockey or something like that, or like basketball on the road. Like, it's like, I don't know. I mean, it's tough. It's almost, you have these conflicting views. Like, I get it. You know what I mean? I understand it, but it's like, well, how can you ever get to a point where it's like, we're being evaluated when they're like, the philosophies are so far apart? You know what I mean? It's like, well, here's philosophically what I need to evaluate as a president, as almost like a businessman. Right. And then it's like, as a strength coach, it's like, we're almost like, to a fault, like loyal to the craft and loyal to the industry. Right. But you know what I mean? It's like, it seems like it's like pretty far apart in terms of like, all right, well, what are we chasing versus what the university needs to chase in order to be successul? Like, is there a balance where you can do it, where there's still some integrity involved in what's going on? Like, that's a heavy question or whatever. I don't know. Those are kind of my thoughts. And that's why I'm, kind of at a place where I'm like, I don't know about college athletics. I don't know. I'm not sure like what the vision is there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, trust me. I definitely get it. And I think now you got to have the separation between what people look at as revenue sports and non-revenue sports. Because if you're really fostering the excellence of an athletic department, every sport will generate revenue. It just will look different. Yeah. So everybody kind of looks at basketball and football as the only revenue sports. But then, hey, you have some schools that have like great hockey teams or great soccer teams or softball, baseball, track and field. It varies. And then when you have you have community engagement, and then you put out a product, like I said, that's focused on excellence. And yes, championships and wins and everything like that. Yes, it's important for, like I said, some athletic directors and even some coaches, because sometimes we have this win now methodology that, hey, you got 2-3 years. If it ain't getting done in 2-3 years, then you go pack it up and get going somewhere else. And sometimes we in this profession that, of course, we're not trying to tell sport coaches how to do their job. And like I said, they're not in turn trying to tell us how to do that, but it doesn't always translate. And what people think of the key performance indicators from the weight room, and just say, hey, if a guy squats 600, he should be able to move this guy here, here, and here. Or if he runs, or his dial or his squat jump should be this, and this. Well, you should be able to jump this high and everything like that. Everything doesn't always correlate, but, and like I said, I'm not trying to be kind of be too far out there, but it's so many, like I said, so many different factors that you have to play in, and kind of keeping it simple and smart, and making sure that, again, the athletes, you're doing what's best for them, and then in turn putting the team together that the sport coach wants. But that's like I said, that's a whole different conversation though.
I know. Yeah. Cause it's like, if you think about it, you're like, all right, well, you get to a point where, you're thinking to yourself, I'm doing right by the athlete. I'm doing right by the coach. I'm providing education. Like, maybe you guys have a great setup where you guys are educating each other, and that alone, like, you guys are bettering each other. And that is pushing the industry forward when, sport coaches can have conversations with strength coaches, and you guys can educate each other on like your roles and the value you provide, different ways, different lenses to look through, different perspectives. Like, I'd be lying if I said there wasn't times where I wanted to tell a sport coach how to structure their practice a little bit better, just solely based on some overall like overarching principles of like, speed and power qualities and, work capacity and things to that effect. But I get it. I think that the do or die scenario for, it's like win or bust kind of thing. I understand it. I don't want to sound naive. I understand that you need to win, but it's like anything else. Like, if I was to be like, all right, I'm going to set up my portfolio, and, I want to be, I want to make $100,000. I want to make $1 million next week. Like, that's a do or die situation. You know what I mean? Like, you put yourself, like, if I was to like open up a facility or something, and I'm like, hey, I need to have clients, and I need to have athletes coming in and out of here, because I need to hit the rent by the end of the month, and I need to be able to get an overhead or some sort of like, net gain in some way, shape, or form. That's a do or die situation. And I'm not saying that dudes don't do that all the time, and there's guys who do. and they make it happen. And there's a lot of guys, way more guys who don't make it happen, because I think it's setting yourself up for failure. And I think that most people fail. Like most people, right? Like these athletic directors run through coaches. It's like coach after coach after coach. Like most of the coaches don't work out because a 2 to 3 year plan, especially if you're not truly having the conversations that need to be had in order to try to rectify the previous faults of the previous staff, whatever it is, like it's not even just like understanding your failures. It's having a system to like actually have dialogue about failures, learn from them, and then obviously create solutions moving forward. Like I always feel like that was the biggest mistake that we had when I was at UConn. It's like, we didn't understand our failures enough. Like there was plenty of failure going around, and we were one of the worst college football programs in the country. There definitely was enough failure to assess, but we didn't have a good system to assess and learn from that failure. So I know that's kind of like a separate situation, separate topic, but I do think the do or die situation, like success or bust is, like when I set out goals for myself, I set out plans, like I'm going to start instituting the goal immediately, and I'm going to start taking the steps immediately, and I'm going to pursue it with a certain aggression. But I'm not going to say that I'm not going to say that I need to have it done by next week. Like everything has a process and everything has its ebbs and flows. I just don't know in the world of college athletics. I understand there is no time for that. So I don't know, like, do you get to a point where you try to get it to where like you can create more time for coaches and strength coaches to have better success working together over a longer period of time? Or is it just, it's only getting shorter? Like, I feel like the timelines are getting shorter. You know what I mean? It used to be like 3 to 5 years. Now it's like 2, maybe, you know what I mean? Like win next year or else you're out, So like, so I don't know. Like I said, I don't want to go down like too far in the rabbit hole. I want to kind of keep us on tap, but like, you know what I mean? So I don't know. It's just so flawed. It's like, and everybody knows it, you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Anyway, so like moving on, what do you think in retrospect, like some of your thoughts on your career, anything you would have done differently? Any, like, I'm sure there's been mistakes, we all make mistakes, but like not even the mistakes, just anything you would have done differently or changed, like looking back on your career.
So I would say this. I think one of the things I would have done differently, and so when I left Delta State and then went to Southeastern Louisiana, I had a great experience. And that was the year we were coming off, like I said, COVID, and we were, like I said, the year before women's basketball went to the D2 playoffs, and we were literally about to go practice for the game and everything like that. And then we got the word that everything was canceled. And so like coming back off that next year, everybody was a little bit sluggish, just in terms of just all athletes, because you got people that, like, if you either had underlying conditions or some things, how everybody reacted differently to having COVID, from all athletic departments, and you have to have some different protocols and things. I think the only thing I would have done different, because I left there in January to go to Southeastern Louisiana, if I go back and look at it, I would have stayed that last part of that season. Like I say, it was a great opportunity that I got. I got to replace Tom Dacia, who went to go be an assistant at UMass with Coach Antonio Turner, with that transition that they had. But I would have stayed that last half, and then I would have finished my master's a little bit sooner, and then kind of would have been able to kind of foster some different relationships as well, because I would have got to finish that season out, even though like the seniors that year, like I said, we talked about it, like, Coach, we understand, but like, shoot, I think that I would have stayed, and I think that's kind of the realm that we're in, like even with college athletics, kind of being able, not being able, quote unquote, a jumper, but then making sure that so each decision kind of has to be a personal decision of like for your development, but then also what's kind of best for you, and looking at just what's best for the athletes in general.
Yeah. And I think you're in a situation where you had to do what was best for you. And obviously, like you say, it's funny how understanding the athletes are. Like, it seems like they're more mature and understanding of our situation. Either sometimes we are, or like other people that work in the industry. They get it. And it's almost like sad. It's unfortunate, because they're just like, yeah, we know, like we're going to be having a variety of different coaches that kind of come through here, and everybody's going to kind of come and go at certain times, you know what I mean, depending on the level that you're at and everything. But obviously, like, just from talking to you, and obviously from, your perspective, on your perception of how the athletes view you. They definitely don't view you as a jumper, and they know you were just doing what you needed to do that was best for you, so no, that's awesome. And obviously it worked out, you know what I mean? It's obviously in a situation now where you're able to have that impact. So
exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, kind of going through things now, I just want to kind of get to a couple of these last questions that I have for you. And I think this one's super important. Young strength coaches in the field, right? Like you've got, like you said, you got a ton of experience. What would you say to them now, knowing that the industry has changed, right? Since you got involved, what's some advice that you would give to them, some of the young guys getting involved, young men and women, obviously at, 18, 19 years old, some of these young coaches now, what would you say to them?
I would say first thing, network. Don't be afraid to email, call, reach out to people. I think that was something that was big for me as a young strength coach, that I didn't really have any fear on talking to people and being able to have like genuine conversations, because a lot of people will get into stuff and they have like this fear, like, okay, just because this coach is at this school or he has this big name or anything like that, that they're not people too, that they're not personable. So like I said, and people like I said, and be vulnerable. Like don't be scared to be vulnerable even when you're talking to people. And again, you don't have to sound like you know everything, because as a young strength coach, you're there to learn. And even with some things, even like myself, like just because it may be a topic that you're unfamiliar with, don't be afraid to kind of dive deep into it. And like I say, read and just use the best ways that you learn and show that, okay, I may not know it now, but say I have the attitude where it may be a quote unquote not a problem, but I'll find a solution. I'll get better at this, and just being able to attack that every day, because I think everything that's good comes on the other side of consistency and discipline.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great quote. That belongs on Twitter or YouTube somewhere. That's a good inspiration, right? Discipline and consistency. Absolutely. Those are two great combinations of things. Well, what's before I let you go, obviously we're coming up on an hour now. What do you kind of have planned, like moving forward? Like I'm always interested to kind of hear, like what's the plan for you, obviously heading into the summer and then over these next, couple of years, like what are some of the things that you kind of have your eyes set on?
Right now, overall, just kind of being the best strength coach I can. And I know, like I said, right now we're in the last week of workouts before we start preparation for finals and things like that. So I think the biggest things for my teams right now, even just with me, like I said, me being here and going forward, is just saying that, hey, I want to be able to improve and kind of, like I said, give them their feedback on what we kind of need to work on during the summer. And like I say, each individual team and athlete, again, will be different. And like I say, from years to come, and like I say, I've been pretty much all over the place. Like I said, been to the East Coast, and now kind of moving more to the West Coast and everything like that. But overall, just kind of getting in a position where I'm settled in, and like I say, at a place that, like I say, where everybody, like I said, everybody's fostering development. Because the thing is, like I said, no matter where I'm at, I want everybody to be on the same page. I want people to kind of talk the same language and being able to hold athletes accountable. And then that, of course, everybody say, oh yeah, I want to be a Power 5 Division I strength coach. I just want to be somewhere that I'm valued, and just be somewhere that, like I say, everybody doesn't have to quote unquote be on the same page all the time, but they'll be able to be open to having these productive conversations, so we can help push the athlete experience and the actual, I would say how do I put this? I don't know, just the overall, the value of what college athletics is. Because everybody's different from a college athletic standpoint, just because you see, some people may lessen the value of college athletics. Like even from, like, we'll say from basketball, you can go 1 year and go to the NBA, or just saying, hey, what's the value of the degree? What's the value of being able to stay in college and then also pursue your professional career? And I think, like I said, those are different variables that apply to different people, and just show that, hey, this is valuable. Yes, like I said, the revenue is all there, like NIL, like it's changing and everything like that. But how can I make this the best place that it can be? And then just show that, hey, like I said, the professional leagues, and then have more conversations about the wide array of sports and not just football, baseball, basketball, and kind of look at soccer and softball and stuff like that. Because I think everybody, again, like everybody's an athlete, no matter when you're done playing, when you stop playing, and just show that having healthy lifestyles and just being able to build upon that.
Yeah, man, that's an awesome answer, Tommy. I appreciate that. I appreciate your insight on this. You got some great thoughts, and honestly, over the next couple of years, I hope you're able to achieve obviously all the things that you're looking to achieve, and whether it be personally, professionally, or whatever the case. But yeah, I think you're right. Like having a deeper conversation and kind of providing a different type of value for the athlete experience, and recognizing all the vast different types of experience that can be provided through all the different sports that we can play and obviously be involved in. So I mean, I think maybe even getting to a point where every single sport has their own strength coach, right, and has their own sort of like physiotherapist, and kind of, it can really dive deep there into the weeds. But I think that there's a lot of value in that, and I really appreciate you hopping on. Is there any like final words? I know you got some athletes probably running through there, but is there any final words that you have for any, just kind of what you want to put out there, obviously, before the podcast ends?
Oh yeah, well, just I mean, again, like I said, I just thank you for this opportunity, and just for, like I said, all the strength coaches that have come before me. And like I said, definitely if anybody, like I said, reach out just for, like I say, my contact, because I'm open to learning from everybody. Again, not trying to say, hey, I'm not just a football guy, basketball guy. I just want to be the best strength coach I can. And just, again, from young strength coaches or even older, like I said, don't be afraid to jump into some things that you don't know, because like I say, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So take that shot, even if it's something that you don't know, or like I say, you kind of skeptical about a little bit, because you never know what you, like I say, what you get out of it, and the value that you get. And again, like I said, hope to, like I said, have some more conversations with you and other people that have been on the collective, and kind of fostering that relationship.
Yeah, no doubt. We really appreciate having you on, man. This was awesome. This is great stuff. I really appreciate your thoughts on things. And is there just go back to the contact info? Is there any like your social media or email or anything that anybody can get in contact with you with, or you want to plug anything? Let us know.
Yep. Yes. Yeah. Okay, guys. Yeah. So on Instagram, like I said, Coach T_MO, and then like I say, my personal phone number, like I said, 803-447-8113. Like I said, shoot me a text or a call or anything like that. Like I said, I'm not afraid to talk to people, and even just with, like I say, any kind of any kind of conversation or anything like that. Like, I'm definitely open to it.
Yeah, no doubt, man. Well, this is awesome, Tommy. This is nice having you on here, man. It's great to meet you. I'm glad we got the connections through Chauncey and Quan as well. So hopefully next time I see you, your beard is looking like Quan's. You know what I mean? Nice pulled out, hey. And maybe mine will be getting there too at some point. So
hey, listen, it's gonna come. It's coming. I don't know if I'm gonna catch Quan. I'm not gonna catch Quan, but I'm gonna say this, and this is the last thing I got. I think, hands down, right now, like industry wise, like the guys that I know, Coach Key Pugh at the University of Maryland, that's my guy too. He got us all beat.
Yeah. I know. It's like I look at some of the beers and I'm like, man, it just seems like that takes so much more patience than I think I had. Like I was getting like pretty good. Like it was like and then like right before Easter, I was like, nah, man. I was like, I can't even floss without like the mustache like getting in my teeth and stuff like that, getting under my lip. I'm like, we gotta cut this thing. And then Grandma's like, nah, we don't need all that stress. So I was like, all right. If Grandma says shave it, you gotta shave it.
Yeah.
Levels,
Oh yeah. You got to.
There's rules to this shit. You know what I mean? So. Oh man. Well, hey Tommy, I appreciate your time, man. Let's chat soon. I'm gonna hit you up now.